Hi, I'm Dante. Hello to the BTI academic staff that'll be reviewing this. I'm student number 129083666, and today I will talk about my experience in the course you've created in Creative Challenges and the lessons I've learned from the first semester of this course. Before the first class of cc2cp, I thought that the setting of the lecture would be in a great hall where we would be taught by a single lecturer how to find a solution to a complex problem. Knowing that this module would be centered around future cities, I thought that we were going to look at cities today that had accelerated in technological advancement as they were seen as the cities of tomorrow in current times, like Barcelona's smart city, for example. Looking at how technology interacts with humans and becomes a vital part of our everyday life. That is what I thought we were going to focus solely on, not so much observational research and individual reflection and presentation skills, as we'll get into later on. Initially, I thought that there would be some collaboration and social interaction with fellow BTI students and academic staff, but mainly coming out of high school, I thought it would be more like one teacher just sort of proposing a problem to students and just giving us weekly assignments to go figure out and solve these complex problems. Because I was so used to this, I took for granted secondary research, and I would often do all my assignments online. I know I'm getting into the middle part of the reflection, but I thought that we would be doing mainly secondary research and very little observational research, as well as reflections, which I had no experience whatsoever at. So my feelings about the course at the start were, once I read the briefs online, were that I was quite confused and I was scared about how complex these challenges could be, and mainly when looking at the presentation part and how the assignments, how there was a big part, how it contributed a big part to the assignment marking criteria. I thought that, because I'm not very strong at presentation, that I thought that it would be a very big challenge. So that was one uneasy feeling I had. So I had no idea about what method cards were, and so going into the course I was kind of a little bit anxious to sort of, do we have to come up with a method card before the start of the class? Do we have to, construct these elaborate method cards that could help us solve problems? These were like some of the questions that I thought that I asked myself before going into the course. So in week 1 to 4 of complex challenges to creative possibilities, I assumed that we would just be doing some in-class learning, where we would be, getting several guests in and teachers, just like what happened. But I didn't think that we would actually be doing physical activities and interactive activities with other BTI students, but this also helped in, building relationships with the BTI students and also allowing for collaboration to be easier amongst them during assignments, and also it would be easier if you had any questions about the observational research it would help you to express your feelings and questions more. And I think that's what cc2cp really helped me to develop. It helped me to be more confident asking others for help and also asking others' opinions on certain things. So for weeks 1 to 4 in the seminars, we had a really good guest speaker at the start called his name was George Capsey. He was a expert in presentations and also he was an expert in presentations, and he helped us to sort of feel comfortable in our skin. So we would do exercises where we stand up and we'd throw a ball. We'd form a circle and we'd throw a ball to each other, and we'd remember their names of the students that we'd throw the ball to. This developed our connections to one another, and also he helped us to do one-on-one conversations and sort of to evaluate our stance, the way we stood, and how we presented ourselves to the other person. Also, he also taught us how to properly stand during a presentation, to not stand with your arms folded or your arms like in your pockets, but to sort of use your hands as a tool of communication. Also, this heightens engagement, and it focuses the audience on the voice of the presentation. So besides this, we were introduced to method cards. There were actual physical method cards. It was a sigh of relief when I found out that we would be given these method cards and we didn't have to come up with them ourselves, like I mentioned before. It was method cards that were definitely, it was a taken for granted type of research. The method cards were of different faculties and of different ways to gather research. So looking at all of the method cards, it also allowed us to pick and choose which one we thought suited to our personalities and our current traits that we have, and what we thought would be effective in observing, observing certain subjects through the assessments we were given. So that was mainly week 1 to 4. Also, we were at the beginning of the subject to construct a method card poster where we had to choose one method card, and we'd give 1 minute presentation on what the method card is, why it is used, and who it would be used by and who it would be useful by. So I chose the experience of space, and when I presented this to the class, I realized how deficient I was in my communication skills. I lacked eye contact, tone, I looked at the poster a lot instead of conveying my knowledge of my chosen method card to the audience and the academic staff, which sort of gave off this vibe that I wasn't interested in the subject I was evaluating and researching, and so in turn it had an effect on the audience. There was also a strong emphasis on applying these method cards into practice, which we'll focus on more in the second reflection. Hi again, this is part 2 of the cc2c reflection vlog. Now I will be talking about the middle of the course, more specifically how my knowledge of the method cards have been furthered and how they are being applied in professional contexts. Next, I'll be talking about power of empathy and how observational research is just beginning of solving an issue. Then I'll be talking about assessment 2 in future cities, and then under all of this I'll be talking about my feelings towards all of these things that are happening, and then I'm going to reflect on how this vlogging process, me talking to you over the camera, and how that influences the reflection process. While doing this newly introduced observational research during assessment 1, I had to make sure that the data I was collecting was valid and useful to contribute towards developing fresh insights for the area of study for each assessment that we did. The faculty staff there was there to help guide us during the observational research. So while we're at Barangaroo, they would help us. We'd have to meet them at a certain time, and they'd sort of give feedback on the data and research we were collecting firsthand, and they would give pointers on how we could look at the data we collected in different ways. It would help us to develop multiple insights and perspectives towards a single problem, because the whole idea of this course is to look at not just one narrow solution to a problem, but to look, because it is called, to possible solutions. So one complex problem will have multiple solutions. So one big lesson cc2cp taught me out of this was that first-hand research is just as, if not more important than secondary research. As you're collecting raw data on your particular area of study, whereas secondary research relies on stock information and resources that were posted probably, days, months, or even years earlier. So during the middle part of the course, we had a couple guest speakers, but the most important ones in my eyes were Kees Dorst and Nathan Wiltshire. Kees Dorst is a designer and also an author who writes books about design, and his lecture was pretty fascinating because him and his team actually came up with a whole new frame. It's called framing, and it basically looks at societal issues and technological problems with today's current solutions to various problems today, and he then sees how he can better those to make it more efficient and more effective, and to benefit stakeholders more wholesomely. So during his lecture, he said that because we're in a more complex world, we face more problems that are open, dynamic, complex, and networked. So he used a case study of King's Cross as an example, where him and his team did some observational research, which I'll talk a bit about later with Nathan Wiltshire, but he did a bit of observational research to see what the nightlife in King's Cross was like during the peak hours of drinking. And what he found was that when this happened, when the drinking occurred, the place was manic, like there was no transport or anything, and people were just left out on the streets to sleep. And that's why there's so many king hits happening there, because people are just standing outside and they don't know what to do. So what Keys and his team decided to do to combat this issue was to do several things that would help the intoxicated people when coming out of nightclubs in King's Cross. He would get tour guides with t-shirts marked X on them in bright pink. He would also set up little breather alleys, so to speak, which would allow the intoxicated people to take a breather and relax. This will sort of minimize the aggression levels and testosterone levels that you see out on the streets. So that was Keys. So next we have Nathan Wiltshire, who talked about empathy. I thought this was quite interesting because empathy allows us to carry out observational research, but observational research is just the beginning, because with observational research we just make judgments about people and stakeholders without actually digging deep further into their lives. So we did an activity in class where we'd look at several pictures and we'd rate their competence against their warmth, and at the end of this we would graph their competency and warmth, and we'd get we'd find the XY coordinates of how low or high we rated them,
and then we'd get a single name like pity or envy. And I found it interesting that most of the results I found were that I envied.
So after the topics covered in reflection 2, now we move on to reflection 3, where most of this part of the reflection, it was based around probably around assessment 2, future cities, with my group Invent to Connect, because this was the most memorable and the most time-consuming part of the last stretch of semester 1 of this course. So, yep, I found that collaboration during this time was absolutely essential between us, and I feel like I really grew. I really saw that I grew from day 1 to this point. We were using different types of platforms like Messenger. We used Slack at some points just to communicate with the team and to delegate tasks efficiently and effectively. And we all contributed equally to the end result of making a map of inquiry methods and sort of finding the inconsistencies or gaps in these methods to create a prototype of our own, a prototype being a provocatory prototype, a prototype, which I had no idea what this word meant at the beginning of the course. So it was sort of like a jargon term that was used. It's probably used amongst the designer crowd. So, yeah, that was completely new. So we also found out that prototype, it didn't have to be a technologically advanced way of showing an idea or a concept. It could be as simple as showing, an idea on a piece of cardboard or using some strings to, just as long as it effectively put forward your idea. Okay, so from the learnings from this entire goal, from these learnings, from this assignment, and also from everything else in this course, the most important things I got out of it were that collaboration is essential into tackling an extremely open, dynamic, and complex problem. Collaboration will play a key role in the rest of this course and future career. Also, presentation of ideas is a big one. For the field I want to go into is design. You have to always express and put forth your ideas in a clear and concise way. So that was reflection 3. So now I'm going to talk about how this video reflection process, me talking to you, but also sort of talking to myself in a way, just looking at myself on the screen, and how this has influenced the reflection process. So the difference between video and textual reflection is that a moving subject is much more engaging and and elicits a stronger empathetic reaction in the viewer. The thoughts and feelings feel more organic and brings out my honest feelings towards the seminars, teachers, students, and assessments, and also the guest speakers. It also highlights the most important aspects of the course that I found were very interesting. There are some constraints though to the video reflection process. There is a time limit. I probably didn't cover as much information as I would like because I'm doing this a lot by improvisation, so I do stumble quite a bit. I would have liked I cover aspects of the course in general detail. I don't actually go in depth as much as I would also like, but in doing this, the clarity is also a bit off, as I mentioned earlier, and the ideas and thoughts may get lost in translation, so I may jump from one idea to the next without letting you know. So those are some of the constraints that I found, but in light of all this, it also gave me
more strong sense of direction on my future career path and where I'd like to go with these teachings.